करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
We have seen the story of this great epic Sohrab and Rustum in the last class. So there is nothing more to add in terms of the story. And we have gone through the poem to an extent. We need to go through the remainder of the poem, and what probably you should focus on is the narration of the emotions that is to follow now. The story so far is that Sohrab is a youth who is on the side of the Tartars, and Tartars and Persians, they have gathered together in the banks of Oxus river for a battle. And on this particular day, like in every battle, Sohrab seeks to find his father Rustum. So he requests Paranvisa that there shall be a one-to-one combat. And Paranvisa, though he does not want to lose Sohrab in any way, though that is a low risk option because Sohrab is an undefeated warrior also so far, but Sohrab will not yield. So Paranvisa goes and challenges the Persians, and Ferud, the chief on that side, is accepting the challenge, though they know that it is very difficult for anybody to fight against Sohrab. And the idea is that they know that Rustum has camped nearby and they want to convince Rustum. So one of the councils there, Gudurs, goes to Rustum and he tries to induce Rustum to take up arms maybe for one last time and fight Sohrab. Rustum is actually not interested in fighting anymore. He has become old. Not only that, the very thought that he has not been able to produce a son to whom he can pass on the legacy of his warfare and other skills, that has very much put him off. And he is not in an active life of warfare anymore. And not only that, the way in which Khai Khusru, the king of Persia, has been treating not just him, other old warriors is also not very nice. Therefore, he is totally indifferent to the challenge. He says, and that's where we concluded in the last class, that if I had a son, he would be like Sohrab only, he says, and I would be happily, he will be representing me in all the war field, and I would have led a very peaceful retired life with my father. His father is Zal in some distant remote village he is there, and I would have spent all the glory and whatever money I have earned in a very peaceful and retired life. But I am not interested anymore to fight. And if the king wants, and he is only encouraging all the young warriors now, and the young warriors are afraid of Sohrab, that's their problem. I have nothing to say anymore. Like that, he turns down the offer. Now, how does Gudurs make him fight? And that's where we left.
And Gudurs made reply, "What then, O Rustum, will men say to this? When Sohrab bears our bravest forth and seeks thee most of all, and thou, whom most he seeks, hidest thy face? Take heed, lest men should say, like some old miser, Rustum hoards his fame, and shuns to peddle it with younger men." And greatly moved, then Rustum made reply, "O Gudurs, wherefore dost thou say such words? Thou knowest better words than this to say. What is one more, one less, obscure or famed, valiant or craven, young or old to me? Are not they mortal? Am not I myself? But who, for men of naught, would do great deeds? Come, thou shalt see how Rustum hoards his fame. But I will fight unknown and in plain arms. Let not men say of Rustum, he was matched in single fight with any mortal man. He spoke and frowned.
Right. So this is where the vanity is tickled. The parallel for this we see in Julius Caesar, where the soothsayer says, when Ides of March is there, then it is a bad time for Caesar. And on that very particular morning, when the conspirators had planned to assassinate Caesar, they had planned in such a way that he will come and there was a trial there, and in the trial what will be the proceeding and how they will take it and finally lead to killing Caesar. On that very particular morning, Caesar's wife, in an early morning dream, she dreams that it's not very favorable for Caesar and he dies. So she pleads to him that today he should not go to the court. And Caesar says, okay, it's okay. Like that, he decides to stay back. One of the conspirators, I think Casca or somebody, has come to fetch Caesar. And suddenly all their plans is gone, because Caesar says that he will not come. Then Casca says, what should I tell the Romans? What should I tell the people there that if they ask why has not Caesar come? To which Caesar says, tell them it is Caesar's will. Caesar is not answerable to anyone. It is Caesar's will. If he wishes to come, he will come. If he decides not to come, he will not come. But he tells him to Casca, I am telling you privately, it is my wife who had a bad dream and she's feeling sentimental, so I don't feel like going. Casca says, okay, but I'll go and say that we'll hold this meeting later at a later date when Caesar's wife will have better dreams. Like that, he puts it in such a way that the ego of Caesar is kindled, and he says, what is this? It is shame if I do like this. And despite the pleading of the wife, he goes there and meets the fate that awaits him there. It is exactly like that here. Gudurs is telling Rustum, okay, so far you have been never an undefeated warrior, and you still want to maintain like that. So as like an old miser who hoards his fame, you want to hoard it because you are now not sure what will happen to your well-deserved fame so far, because there's a young challenger who is waiting, and what he will do, nobody knows. So you want to, you are protecting yourself. These are words that will not go well with a warrior. That's how even Krishna subtly props up the emotions of Arjuna also after giving intellectual reasons also. Like that it is, because for a Kshatriya, for a warrior, honor and pride, that is much more valuable than all the gifts and all the money that they can acquire. So then he turns and says, what is this you are saying, Gudurs? It is not like that. You know what is, you should speak better to me. One young or one old foe or one more, how does it make any difference? And just see how I fight today, and you will see then how Rustum, he is angry and he is shouting like that. But he puts a condition that he will fight unknown. The persons in the opposite camp will not know who is fighting. Maybe the reason could be that it is just that one last time he is fighting, and again that Rustum has come and he is again in active life. He doesn't want to get associated with this. Maybe for this particular thing he wants, so let me fight unknown. Like that he puts a condition, and let us see what happens in a single fight. Like that he takes up that decision now. Yeah.
And Gudurs turned and ran back quickly to the camp in fear and joy. Fear at his wrath, but joy that Rustum came. But Rustum strode to his tent door and called his followers in and bade them bring his arms and clad himself in steel. The arms he chose were plain, and on his shield was no device. Only his helm was rich, inlaid with gold, and from the fluted spine atop, a plume of horsehair waved, a scarlet horsehair plume. So armed, he issued forth, and Ruksh, his horse, followed him like a faithful hound at heel. Ruksh, whose renown was noised through all the earth, the horse whom Rustum on a foray once did in Bukhara by the river find a colt beneath its dam, and drove him home and reared him, a bright bay with lofty crest, dight with a saddle cloth of bordered green, crusted with gold, and on the ground were worked all beasts of chase, all beasts which hunters know. So followed. Rustum left his tents and crossed the camp, and to the Persian host appeared. And all the Persians knew him, and with shouts hailed, but the Tartars knew not who he was. And dear as the wet diver to the eyes of his pale wife who waits and weeps on shore by sandy Bahrain in the Persian Gulf, plunging all day in the blue waves at night, having made up his tale of precious pearls, rejoins her in her bare hut upon the sands, so dear to the pale Persians, Rustum came. And Rustum to the Persian front advanced,
Right.
and Sohrab armed in Haman's tent and came. And as afield the reapers cut a swath down through the middle of a rich man's corn, and on each side are squares of standing corn, and in the midst a stubble, short and bare, so on each side were squares of men, with spears bristling, and in the midst the open sand. And Rustum came upon the sand, and cast his eyes down toward the Tartar tents, and saw Sohrab come forth, and eyed him as he came.
So this portion describes Rustum's coming to the war. One thing what you have to note here is that the people in his own camp were hailing, but maybe not with his name, and even if they shouted, because it was it was made clear to them that he will fight unknown. But they all hailed that Rustum has come to fight. They all know that this is one person who can take up any challenge. And before that, he is also introducing the character called Ruksh. Ruksh is the famed horse of Rustum. Ruksh has gone to every battlefield with Rustum, and it is like a very terrifying beast. When as a colt, Rustum found it in one of his raids and has lovingly reared the horse. Ruksh literally means lightning, and such was the fame of Ruksh also. And there's a beautiful metaphor also given. Just as a deep sea diver has gone to get pearls from the ocean, and his wife is waiting on the shores in a very, very anxious way, because it is a very risky job that he is doing, and how anxious she will be. But at last, when he comes up with the pearls and they are happily there in the tent in the night, how happy she feels upon his return. Like that are the Persians feeling now, because Rustum has not been in active warfare long. But now, when a challenge is thrown, they do not know what to do, and now he has come. And when he comes, he is now looking at the opposite side, and who is coming there is a young boy, is this young youth called Sohrab. So he is looking at him in a very pensive way. Continue.
As some rich woman on a winter's morn eyes through her silken curtains the poor drudge who with numb blackened fingers makes her fire, at cockcrow on a starlit winter's morn, when the frost flowers the whitened window panes, and wonders how she lives and what the thoughts of that poor drudge may be. So Rustum eyed the unknown adventurous youth who from afar came seeking Rustum, and defying forth all the most valiant chiefs. Long he perused his spirited air and wondered who he was. For very young he seemed, tenderly red, like some young cypress, tall and dark and straight, which in a quaint secluded garden throws its slight dark shadow on the moonlit turf. by midnight to a bubbling fountain sound. So slender Sohrab seemed, so softly read, and a deep pity entered Rustum's soul as he beheld him coming, and he stood and beckoned to him with his hand and said, O thou young man, the air of heaven is soft and warm and pleasant, but the grave is cold. Heaven's air is better than the cold dead grave. Behold me, I am vast and clad in iron and tried, and I have stood on many a field of blood, and have fought many a foe. Never was that field lost or that foe saved. O Sohrab, wherefore wilt thou rush on death? Be governed, quit the Tartar host and come to Iran, and be as my son Kali, and fight beneath my banner till I die. There are no youths in Iran as brave as thou. So he spake mildly. Sohrab heard his voice, the mighty voice of Rustum, and he saw his giant figure planted on the sand, sole, like some single tower which a chief hath built on the waste in former years against the robbers. And he saw that head streaked with its first grey hairs. Hope filled his soul, and he ran forward and embraced his knees and clasped his hand within his own and said, O by thy father's head, by thine own soul, art thou not Rustum? Speak, art thou not he?
From now on, you will see that till the end, it is only these two people who will be speaking to each other and fighting with each other. A lot of descriptions are given about the fight also. And you will see from time to time how various host of emotions flow between them, and it keeps on changing also. And that is what we need to appreciate in this poetry, that all these emotions have been very beautifully captured in the words. Though the original is in Persian and it is English, maybe a translation or a poem that is inspired by the original, what Matthew Arnold has given us is something very wonderful to go through. In fact, if we pause like this and we have even some words of explanation in between, it could actually stop the flow of the poem, but maybe we will do just for understanding what's happening, that's all. But you have to go along with the emotions that is being portrayed in the poem here. So when Sohrab is coming, Rustum is looking at him like how a queen will look at some other lady through her curtain, and she is doing all the hard work and she can't understand how, but there's a sense of pity that that she has, that why does she do all these things, and what is the necessity for her to do all these things, in that sort of a very good emotion. With that emotion is how Rustum is viewing Sohrab, because having looked at this boy, something happens in his heart. A deep pity enters his heart. So he bids Sohrab to come to him, and he speaks that, and he saw how beautifully he has been nurtured and what a charming youth that he is. So a deep pity enters him, and why he should be killed in a battle, that sort of a pity enters him. So he says that I have never lost a battle. It is better for you to be alive than to be in the grave. And he makes a very tempting offer also, not in a very cunning way, but very genuinely. He says, there is definitely, you have won many battles and maybe there is no youth equivalent to you. Why don't you leave the Tartars and come to Iran, Persia, where he is, and be my son, and I will take care of you, and till the end we can be together. Like that, he genuinely makes an offer, and Sohrab is also touched by his presence. He goes running to Rustum, embraces his knee, falls at his feet probably and embraces his knee, and kisses him. And then, just as in every battle he would look forward to his father, he sees through the plume and other armor that he's wearing, he can see the grey hair. Also in the previous stanza we also saw that all the armor which are very special to Rustum, that he is not wearing, in a very plain armor only he is coming. But there is this red color plume and other things is there. In and through that he is seeing the grey hair. So suddenly he becomes very optimistic that this elderly person could be his father Rustum, whom he has been searching all along and he has not found, and now he has sort of found him is the feeling that he has. So he is asking him, "Oh, by the father said, by thine soul, art thou not Rustum? Speak, art thou not he?" He is asking him. Now let us see what Rustum answers, and again you also feel in terms of how Rustum is reacting to Sohrab's words. Yeah, continue.
But Rustum eyed askance the kneeling youth and turned away and spoke to his own soul. Ah me, I muse what this young fox may mean. False, wily, boastful are these Tartar boys. For if I now confess this thing he asks, and hide it not, but say Rustum is here, he will not yield, indeed, nor quit our foes. But he will find some pretext not to fight, and praise my fame and proffer courteous gifts, a belt or sword perhaps, and go his way. And on a feast-tide in Afrasiab's hall in Samarkand, he will arise and cry, I challenged once, when the two armies camped beside the Oxus, all the Persian lords to cope with me in single fight, but they shrank. Only Rustum dared. Then he and I changed gifts and went on equal terms away. So will he speak, perhaps, while men applaud. Then were the chiefs of Iran shamed through me. And then he turned and sternly spake aloud, Rise, wherefore dost thou vainly question thus of Rustum? I am here, whom thou hast called by challenge forth. Take good thy bond, or yield. Is it with Rustum only thou wouldest fight? Rash boy, men look on Rustum's face and flee. For well I know that did great Rustum stand before thy face this day, and were revealed, there would be then no talk of fighting more. But being what I am, I tell thee this. Do thou record in thine inmost soul, either thou shalt renounce thy bond and yield, or else thy bones shall strew the sand till winds bleach them, or oxus with the summer floods, oxus in summer, wash them all away.
So here Rustum's feeling within himself, he is doubting some sort of a foul play or some sort of a cunning ploy from the opposite side for which there was no reason, but that's how it is. We really cannot understand. We have to probably leave it to that fate would have had it like that only, or maybe that is a warrior's character or whatever it is. We really do not know. Or Rustum's inner character was like that. And because we have seen that he called and Sohrab came, and with all the love and affection only he is speaking, but he has made an offer that you come here and stay with me, and suddenly Sohrab is asking whether he is Rustum. So what is it that this person wants? Why is he asking like this? So he says, if I reveal myself here, then what will happen? What will happen is that he will find some excuse not to fight me, and obviously my offer that I have given him, that he is not going to fulfill. Not just that, he further thinks that in the king's court, when they are going to talk about this later, he will say that I challenged, none of them came, And then only Rustum came. Then we exchanged gifts and we parted like that. So it is like that. Then I will be treated as somebody equal to the other warrior. And in that process, what has happened? What will happen is that I have shamed my own host. The host who have placed faith on me and sent me here, I would have shamed this Persians. Therefore, his whole attitude now changes and he is becoming little enraged. And he says, why? You will fight only Rustum, is it? You asked for a challenger and I have come here. What's your problem? You have to just fight. And if Rustum was here, I have known Rustum. If Rustum was here, all this talking would not be there. That means he would have been finished by now and he has never lost any battle. So therefore, I give you this offer. Either take up my offer and come to me, otherwise be prepared to die. And you will your bones will be there in this Oxus river. Like that, he is now threatening Sohrab. And how does Sohrab react to this? Yeah, continue.
He spoke, and Sohrab answered, on his feet, art thou so fierce? Thou wilt not fright me so. I am no girl to be made pale by words. Yet, this thou hast said well. Did Rustum stand here on this field, there were no fighting then. But Rustum is far hence, and we stand here. Begin. Thou art more vast, more dread than I, and thou art proved, I know, and I am young. But yet, success sways with the breath of heaven. And though thou thinkest that thou knowest sure thy victory, yet thou canst not surely know. For we are all like swimmers in the sea, poised on the top of a huge wave of fate, which hangs uncertain to which side to fall. And whether it will leave us up to land, or whether it will roll us out to sea, back out to sea, to the deep waves of death, we know not. And no search will make us know. Only the event will teach us in its hour.
Sohrab, like a true warrior, is not afraid and he speaks very boldly to Rustum that I will not be, covered in front of you. Okay, you are the person who is more experienced. So you begin the fighting. I am here to challenge and defend myself. But remember, you cannot be so sure of your victory. All of us are like somebody who is perched high on a wave. That wave, when you are perched on that, can put you this side to the shore or can put you that side and it will take you into the deep sea. It is like that. So either you will win or I will win, nobody knows. So don't be so sure of all that. He is replying back to Rustum. Yeah, continue.
He spoke, and Rustum answered not, but hurled his spear. Down from the shoulder, down it came, as on some partridge in the corn, a hawk that long has towered in the airy clouds, drops like a plummet. Sohrab saw it come, and sprang aside, quick as a flash. The spear hissed and went quivering down into the sand, which it sent flying wide. Then Sohrab threw in turn and full struck Rustum's shield. Sharp rang. The iron plates rang sharp, but turned the spear. And Rustum seized his club, which none but he could wield. An unlocked trunk it was, and huge, still rough, like those which men in treeless plains, to build them boats, fish from the flooded rivers. Hyphases or Hydaspes, when high up by their dark springs, the wind in wintertime had made in Himalayan forests track, and strewn the channels with torn boughs, so huge the club, which Rustum lifted now, and struck one stroke. But again Sohrab sprang aside, lithe as a glancing snake, and the club came thundering on earth, and leapt from Rustum's hand. And Rustum followed his own blow, and fell to his knees, and with his fingers clutched the sand. And now might Sohrab have unsheathed his sword, and pierced the mighty Rustum while he lay, dizzy on his knees and choked with sand. But he looked on, and smiled, nor bared his sword, but courteously drew back, and spoke, and said, Thou strikest too hard. That club of mine will float upon the summer floods, and not my bones, but rise, and be not wroth. Not wroth am I. No, when I see thee, wrath forsakes my soul. Thou sayest thou art not Rustum, be it so. Who art thou then, that canst so touch my soul? Boy as I am, I have seen battles too, have waded foremost in their bloody waves, and heard their hollow roar of dying men, but never was my heart thus touched before. Are they from heaven, these softenings of the heart? O thou old warrior, let us yield to heaven. Come, plant we here in earth our angry spears, and make a truce, and sit upon the sand, and pledge each other in red wine like friends. And thou shalt talk to me of Rustum's deeds. There are enough foes in the Persian host, whom I may meet and strike and feel no pang. Champions enough Afrasiab has, whom thou mayest fight. Fight them when they confront thy spear. But oh, let there be peace twixt thee and me.
So the fighting begins by Rustum hurling his spear towards Sohrab, and Sohrab was very agile and he moved, and the spear went past him, and it was planted in the sand, and the sand was all flowing everywhere. In turn, Sohrab threw his spear quite accurately, and it made a loud sound in the shield of Rustum. And then Rustum took his club, and like maybe in our epics we know of Duryodhana and Bhima, like that was his mace, maybe the club which only he could wield. With that he came to hit Sohrab, and again Sohrab escaped. Because of the momentum of his carrying, the club came off him and it went into the sand, and he himself fell. For the first time, Rustum has fallen, and at that point of time, Sohrab could have easily taken his sword and maybe killed him, but he did not think in those lines. He says, I am still not angry at you. There is something within me says that that we should not fight. So that is heaven's calling, he says, and let us yield to that. He said, there are various people who I can fight and I don't feel any pangs fighting them. But for you, my feeling is completely different. Okay, if you are not Rustum, it's fine. But you have seen Rustum, you have had your experience with Rustum. So let us not fight, let us plant our spears here and let us have sort of wine and discuss. You talk to me about Rustum and I'll be very happy to hear. There are enough warriors on the other side for me to fight. There are enough warriors on our side for you to fight. You can fight and I can fight them on a separate day. But today let us not fight, let us have truce. Let us have this type of discussion. Again, Sohrab is showing his very, a statesman-like attitude. But how this is going to enrage Rustum and what is going to follow is something, it's incredible. Continue.
He ceased, but while he spake, Rustum had risen and stood erect, trembling with rage. His club he left to lie, but had regained his spear, whose fiery point now, in his mailed right hand, blazed bright and baleful, like that autumn star, the baleful sign of fevers. Dust had soiled his stately crest and dimmed his glittering arms. His breast heaved, his lips foamed, and twice his voice was choked with rage. At last, these words broke way. Girl, nimble with thy feet, not with thy hands, curled minion, dancer, coin of sweet words, fight, let me hear thy hateful voice no more. Art thou not in Afrasiab's gardens now with Tartar girls with whom thou art wont to dance? But on oxes stands, and in the dance of battle, and with me, who make no play of war, I fight it out, and hand to hand. Speak not to me of truce and pledge and wine. Remember all thy valor. Try thy feints and cunning. All the pity I had is gone, because thou hast shamed me before both the hosts with thy light skipping tricks and thy girls' wiles.
Rustum is actually very, very angry, and he is feeling sort of ashamed. He feels Sohrab has shamed him in front of both the armies because he moved here and there, and for the first time, as I said, Rustum fell down. So in that anger, he says, "You are not a warrior. You are like a girl. You are coming and dancing here, and that's what you know how to do. It is not warrior skills." In fact, he was not able to speak. There was so much choking and so much rage, and now all the erstwhile pity that he had is all completely gone. He says, and he is in an extremely vengeful and a very sort of revenge-taking attitude. And he says, "This is not a camp of Tartars where you are not with girls there and having a party, and you are with a great warrior, and only fighting has to be done here, and be ready now," like that he says. And this actually kindles the anger in Sohrab also. Anger in the sense that warrior spirit in him, and the same spirit with which a warrior will approach the battle, that is now being fully kindled in Sohrab. Yeah, continue.
He spoke, and Sohrab kindled at his taunts, and he too drew his sword. At once they rushed together, as two eagles on one prey come rushing down together from the clouds, one from the east, one from the west, their shields dashed with a clang together, and a din rose, such as that the sinewy woodcutters often make in the forest's heart at morn, of hewing axes crashing trees. Such blows Rustum and Sohrab on each other hailed. And you would say that sun and stars took part in that unnatural conflict. For a cloud grew suddenly in heaven and darkened the sun over the fighters' heads, and a wind rose under their feet, and moaning swept the plain, and in a sandy whirlwind wrapped the pair. In gloom they twain were wrapped, and they alone. For both the onlooking hosts on either side stood in broad daylight, and the sky was pure, and the sun sparkled on the Oxus stream. But in the gloom they fought with bloodshot eyes and laboring breath. First, Rustum struck the shield, which Sohrab held stiff out. The steep spiked spear rent the tough blades, but failed to reach the skin, and Rustum plucked it back with an angry groan. Then Sohrab with his sword smote Rustum's helm, nor clove its steel quite through, but all the crest he shot away, and that proud horsehair plume, never till now defiled, sank to the dust. And Rustum bowed his head, but then the gloom grew blacker, thunder rumbled in the air, and lightnings rent the cloud. And Ruksh, the horse, who stood at hand, uttered a dreadful cry. No horse's cry was that, most like the roar of some pained desert lion who all day hath trailed the hunter's javelin in his side and comes at night to die upon the sand. The two hosts heard that cry and quaked for fear, and Oxus curdled in as it crossed a stream. But Sohrab heard and quailed not, but rushed on and struck again, and again Rustum bowed his head. But this time all the blade, like glass, sprang in 1,000 shivers on the helm, and in the hand the hilt remained alone. Then Rustum raised his head, his dreadful eyes glared, and he shook on high his menacing spear and shouted, "Rustum!" Rustum heard that shout and shrank amazed. Back he recoiled one step, and scanned with blinking eyes the advancing form. And then he stood bewildered, and he dropped his covering shield, and spear pierced his side. He reeled, and staggering back, sank to the ground. And then the gloom dispersed, and the wind fell, and the bright sun broke forth, and melted all the cloud, and the two armies saw the pair. Saw Rustum standing, safe upon his feet, and Sohrab wounded on the bloody sand.
This is the actual sort of climax of the war. How Matthew Arnold portrays this is known as a pathetic fallacy. Such was the description of the fight. The fight was between two humans, but the nature also took part in it. So wherever they were fighting, literally like there was a complete gloom. So the whole fight took place in a gloom. Actually, it also indicates the state of the mind of the two people, which was in complete gloom, completely overpowered by emotions that the fight was happening. And it is just a description and imagination that you can see that Those who are standing from afar and looking at this, they had no clue of what was happening, because the nature was in such a way, the fury was there, that when these two people were fighting, like thunder was there and other heaven, as though the sky was reverberating, like that it was happening. So blows were given to each other, and like that it was, and whatever Rustum was able to produce, Sohrab resisted it. But then Sohrab was gaining upper hand. So he first cut off the plume, and then the sword was shattered to pieces, and only the hilt was there. Such an experience Rustum has never had before, that he is slowly losing his ground. At this point of time, to regain his spirits, to enthuse himself, he shouted his name to himself and cried out, "Rustum!" Like, "Come on, Rustum!" Like that he shouted. The moment Sohrab heard this name, he became completely bewildered and he was transfixed. He would not move after that. He maybe took a step back, and his vision was sort of blinded. He saw some hazy figure coming, and that was Rustum. Now Rustum took advantage of the situation, and in that rage that he was, he pierced his spear on the side of Sohrab, and Sohrab fell wounded. The battle is over, and now he says the entire place is clear. All the sun came and all the fog and everything was gone, and the hosts are now able to have an idea of what was happening. Then they saw one man was standing and one was fallen on the ground, wounded, maybe on his death now, and the man who was standing was the great Rustum, and the boy Sohrab had fallen on the ground. This is the piteous picture now. Now begins a conversation between Rustum and Sohrab, which is like the highlight of the poem. Yeah.
Then, with a bitter smile, Rustum began. Sohrab, thou thoughtest in thy mind to kill a Persian lord this day, and strip his corpse, and bear thy trophies to Afrasiab's tent, or else that the great Rustum would come down himself to fight, and that thy wiles would move his heart to take a gift and let thee go. And then that all the Tartar host would praise thy courage or thy craft and spread thy fame to glad thy father in his weak old age. Fool, thou art slain, and by an unknown man. Dearer to the red jackals shalt thou be than to thy friends and to thy father old.
What is interesting is now Rustum begins to taunt Sohrab. And how does he taunt is that if you read finally that you thought you will bring pleasure to your old father. No, you are not close to your father anymore. You are close to the red jackals. You thought you will kill somebody or take his corpse, or you thought you will fight the great Rustum himself, and then you will go and boast in the tents of the court of your king, so that your fame will be spread because you have fought Rustum. No, and your father will be happy at that. It's very wrong of you to think like that, because now you are closer to the jackals that will eat you and not to your father. And this is how actually Rustum taunts him. It was maybe in the heat of the battle and in the battlefield this will happen. We have also seen very many dialogues being spoken by the great warriors in the Gurukripa war also. And because that is a very, that battle is, that war is described in great detail. So much taunts and various things before and after the war also happens. In this rage, what Rustum has failed to see or forgotten to see is that, as I said, it is all in the heat of the moment, but he did not kill Sohrab when he was like prepared to fight. Sohrab actually had downed his shield. And what made him do that? That is what is the crux. Actually, the moment he heard, see earlier also they were talking about Rustum. Rustum himself said that I have known Rustum, that he is a great warrior. But all those talk about Rustum was something different. The passion with which Rustum brought out his name sent in a very deep sort of feeling inside Sohrab's mind, and therefore it completely changed his attitude or his feeling there, and then that made him lower his guard because he did not know, he was beyond himself. So that way in which Rustum cried out the name completely immobilized Sohrab, and that made him lower his guard. But already Rustum was in a revengeful mode, and he was also being humiliated in the war by this unknown young lad. All this came together, and obviously there's no moment for him to think. So in that rage he killed Sohrab with his spear, and then he taunts him by this words also, which is too much for Sohrab to take. And what does Sohrab reply?
And with a fearless mien, Sohrab replied, Unknown thou art, yet thy fierce want is vain. Thou dost not slay me, proud and boastful man. No, Rustum slays me and his filial heart. And this filial heart. For were I matched with 10 such men as thee, and I were that which till today I was, they should be lying here, I standing there. But that beloved name unnerved my arm, that name and something I confess in thee, which troubles all my heart and made my shield fall, and thy spear transfixed an unarmed foe. And now thou boastest and insultest my fate, but hear, thou this fierce man tremble to hear. The mighty Rustum shall avenge my death. My father, whom I seek through all the world, he shall avenge my death and punish thee. As when some hunter in the spring had found a breeding eagle sitting on her nest upon the craggy isle of a hilly lake, and pierced her with an arrow as she rose, and followed her to find her where she fell far off, anon her mate comes winging back from hunting, and a great way off descries his huddling young dead soul. At that he checks his pinion, and with short uneasy sweeps circles above his eyrie, with loud screams and chiding his mate back to her nest. But she lies dying, with the arrow on her side, in some far stony gorge out of his ken, a heap of fluttering feathers. Nevermore shall the lake glass her flying over it, never the black dripping precipices echo her stormy scream as she sails by. As that poor bird flies home, nor knows his loss, so Rustum knew not his own loss, but stood over his dying son and knew him not.
This is where completely the tragedy in the deepest way begins. Sohrab says that you did not kill me. What killed me was that name. You shouted Rustum, and that sent deep sort of shiver within me, and that made me drop my shield, and you killed an unarmed foe. If you look at even this battle earlier, when in the beginning of the battle, Sohrab was standing and Rustum had fallen down, Sohrab had a chance to kill Rustum. Sohrab did not do it, and he says to him that something in me tells that I have no wrath also. It is not that with all his ego and think, okay, let me leave you, go away. Not like that. He says, I don't have any anger for you. And that is how Sohrab has been feeling all along. And that was a deep pity that also Rustum felt for Sohrab in the beginning. But it was the inner churning of Rustum that made him completely feel in a totally negative way, some sort of a motive he put to Sohrab when he was asking, and completely turned negative towards him, and in the way that culminated in the death, and that death was caused by him killing Sohrab when he was unarmed. So Sohrab says that you did not kill me. If you had not uttered that name, 10 such people will be lying on the ground and I will be standing there. And he is saying it as a matter of fact. That is the power of Sohrab. But such a power was completely unnerved by this word. Now, let's pause here and think. The whole poem, as Swamiji has mentioned time and again, is about attachment. The father was completely attached to the unborn son, that the idea of the son itself, that he would make him a great warrior, and so the moment the wife conceived, from that time onwards, he is extremely anxious for that son. So as I said, everybody having a normal desire for a son is all understandable in a natural way, but this extreme obsession of having a son is the attachment from the side of the father. Obviously, mother's attachment is there, though her character is very small as far as this episode is concerned, and it is very more understandable from a natural point of a woman, that how her emotions will be there. And she sent word to her husband that who is born is a girl and not a son. She doesn't want to lose her son in any way. That is the mother's attachment. And what we see also here is the son's attachment to father. It is, maybe we can take it as starting from a positive pride only, that he has heard of his great father and his deeds, and he also wants to emulate him. He wants to bring back his father to his mother. All that is fine, and he has shown extreme talent and extreme sort of objectivity on the field also, that in and through all the emotions he was very agile, and he was able to move away from the spear that was thrown at him and the club that came, and he was able to, like a true hero, fight in the war in a very nice way. And that is the greatness of Sohrab. And yet, when from deep within he heard that name of Rustum, it completely unnerved him. So he was also very much attached to his father who he has never known, who he was very much yearning and longing to meet, whom he thought he met, but he is now convinced that he is not his father and he is fighting. Even in his fight, he was okay and he is balanced. But the entire thing changed when that deep cry of Rustum came from the mouth of Rustum. So it completely unnerved him. It completely, sort of transfixed him. To such a person, this Rustum killed. And therefore we see also for a moment how deep that emotional attachment for a moment can make a person lose his guard also, and that resulted in the loss of his life. And here the poet brings in a very beautiful, very tragic simile. He talks about two eagles which are there happily living in the top of a tree. They have built a nest and young ones are hatching. And the male eagle has gone to bring food for the family, to the female and the young ones. In the meantime, the hunter who was nearby the nest, he has shot an arrow, and that arrow he shot as the eagle was circling around the nest. So therefore in that thing, the eagle also was flowing, but the arrow was taking it further. In that pain, eagle is going to eventually fall off. But as much as it could fly, it was going far off from the nest. And the hunter was chasing the eagle to gather whatever he has shot. So that mother eagle is not going to come anymore. The lakes are not going to reflect her flight anymore. Her voice is not going to be heard anymore as echoes in the hill. Unaware of all these things, the male eagle comes now and calls his mate. He is searching here and there. He was not sure of what his loss was. He was totally unaware of his loss. Like that is the loss of Rustum now. The moment Sohrab talked like this, immediately the entire revengeful hate and anger that was there in Rustum till this point of time, it is gone. It will go and it is gone. And now he is still but not convinced, because when he was dying or when he has fallen down, Sohrab is now opening up the truth which Rustum has not heard so far. He says, "You did not kill me. What killed me was your the cry that you uttered, the name Rustum, and that sort of made me stranded, and then you killed an unarmed foe. But now you can count your days. Remember, the news of my death will reach my father's ears, Rustum. And Rustum will definitely hear of this one day and take revenge. Because he has lost a son, he will take revenge. So be prepared," he says. And this is where we conclude. From now you will see that how Rustum's emotion changes and how Sohrab's emotion is also there for his father. It is one of the most incredible portion from now on till the end, which will continue in the next class.
Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.